We've just got some breaking news in from Buckingham Palace, folks. So this statement has just come in from Buckingham Palace, and I'll read it for you. It goes on to say, His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and...
4 minutes ago, a royal dispute exploded into a deeply personal crisis. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was left heartbroken after learning that Meghan had attempted to claim a restricted pearl tiara reserved for the future queen. Yet this was not simply a dispute over jewels. The request touched Diana's memory, Catherine's position, and a promise quietly protected inside the palace for years. And Meghan's chosen words made the wound even deeper. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine sat inside her Windsor sitting room when her private secretary quietly placed the request before her. Windsor was more than a family residence. It was the place where she carried out work while protecting her children from royal pressure. She read the first page, returned to the beginning, and reread it. Then she lowered the paper. Why would she choose this one? She asked. Her voice stayed controlled. Her eyes did not. Meghan had formally requested permission to wear the Cambridge pearl tiara at an international charity reception. The jewel belonged to the royal collection, the treasures held by the sovereign for the monarchy, rather than owned as possessions. Its restricted status meant it could be worn only under ceremonial conditions. More importantly, the late queen had reserved it for the woman expected to stand beside the future king. That woman was Catherine. The wording cut deeper than the request itself. Meghan described the pearls as a shared family symbol, connected to Diana, and argued that marriage to one of her sons created an emotional claim. She did not simply ask to wear them in Britain. She wanted the tiara released from royal custody, transported overseas, and guarded through a private security arrangement beyond normal internal palace control. Catherine felt years of quiet service being reduced to one woman's demand for equal possession. William entered as she reached the final page. He saw her trembling hand, read the application, and stopped at a reference to an old conversation about his mother. Diana's name had turned a ceremonial request into something painfully personal. Yet the prince noticed something even more alarming beneath that passage. A confidential inventory code identifying the tiara's storage category and transport restrictions. William knew that code was never published. Meghan could not have discovered it through photographs, interviews, or public records. Someone with knowledge of the royal archive had guided her. Catherine looked at her husband, and heartbreak gave way to fear. The pearls were still secured, but a protected door had already been opened, and the person holding the key was closer than either of them imagined. Behind the polished smiles and royal titles stood two women carrying very different versions of the same family history. For Catherine, the pearl tiara represented duty earned through years of restraint, service, and painful public scrutiny. For Meghan, it represented recognition she believed had been withheld. Now one object had drawn those competing emotions into the open, forcing William and Harry to confront a division neither brother had ever truly resolved. Catherine understood why the pearls carried such weight. Queen Elizabeth had privately identified the tiara as a future symbol of stability, something the princess could wear when dignity mattered more than display. A documented note from the late queen described it as a jewel for moments of national reassurance. It was not simply beautiful. It represented trust, slowly earned through service, discipline, and loyalty to the crown. Catherine entered her Windsor bedroom and removed the pearl earrings she had worn that morning. She placed them beside a framed family photograph, then told William that Meghan's request made years of sacrifice feel as though they could be rewritten with a single letter. The prince tried to reassure his wife, but he understood her pain. She had endured scrutiny, illness, and relentless expectation without asking the monarchy to bend around her. Across the ocean, Meghan paced beside a table covered with old royal photographs as Harry watched in silence. She insisted she was not trying to steal anything from Catherine. She wanted acknowledgement that her marriage to Diana's younger son still carried emotional meaning. The Duchess believed the tiara belonged to a wider family inheritance, while the Duke feared that challenging its restriction would deepen a wound already dividing him from William. Then the language inside the request raised a darker question. William learned that it contained the tiara's transportation classification, a security label explaining how a protected royal jewel must be guarded and moved. It also mentioned an unpublished inspection completed months earlier. Catherine immediately understood the danger. Meghan had not built her request from public photographs or family memories. Someone with access to private palace information had helped her. Harry finally admitted as much during a tense recorded conversation with his brother. Meghan had received guidance from a person who understood the royal household, the jewel records, and the limits surrounding ceremonial pieces. Yet when William demanded a name, the Duke refused. His silence protected the source, but it also confirmed that the breach had reached deeper than anyone first believed. Catherine suddenly remembered a memorial reception held months earlier. Meghan had stared at the pearl tiara before asking whether Queen Elizabeth had truly reserved it for one woman, or whether palace officials had simply decided that afterward. At the time, the question sounded wounded. Now it sounded prepared. To understand who planted that idea, they would have to return to the ceremony where admiration became resentment, and where Meghan first decided the pearls should have been hers. The crisis did not begin with a formal request or a confidential code. It began 6 months earlier beneath the chandeliers of St. James's Palace, during a memorial reception honoring royal women across generations. Catherine arrived wearing the pearl tiara for the first time, and the room fell silent. Meghan's reaction lasted only seconds, but one private conversation beside a locked gallery door transformed admiration into resentment, and ultimately triggered everything that followed. Catherine had entered one of the monarchy's most historic settings, carrying a burden few people understood. St. James's Palace is a royal residence used for major court events and formal gatherings. That evening's exhibition honored Queen Elizabeth and Diana through personal objects linked to their public service. The Cambridge Pearl Tiara had not appeared at an authorized event for more than a decade. Its return signaled that the late Queen's trust had passed to a new generation. Meghan attended beside Harry after receiving a limited family invitation. They were welcomed as relatives, not working representatives, royals carrying out official duties on behalf of the monarch, and that distinction barred them from ceremonial jewels. The Duke understood the boundary, but he also knew how deeply his wife felt excluded. When photographers gathered around Catherine, Meghan's expression tightened. Then a courtier called the tiara part of the future Queen's ceremonial wardrobe. Those words changed everything. Ceremonial wardrobe meant the clothing and jewels reserved for official occasions, according to rank and responsibility. To Catherine, the phrase described a duty she had spent years preparing to carry. To Meghan, it sounded like a public declaration that William's wife would inherit every visible connection to Diana, while Harry's family would receive nothing but distant memories. Catherine later found Meghan standing alone beside a locked gallery door. The Duchess asked why one brother's wife should receive every powerful symbol linked to their mother, while the other was expected to remain silent. The princess felt the accusation strike harder than expected. She answered carefully, "It was assigned by the late Queen, not chosen by me." Meghan held her gaze and replied, "Then perhaps the assignment can be challenged." Catherine's equerry documented the exchange that evening in a written account prepared for the household record. An equerry is an officer who assists a senior royal and records important matters involving official duties. His account stated that Meghan immediately questioned whether Queen Elizabeth had legally restricted the tiara or whether palace custom merely protected it. Harry later learned of that question, and his silence allowed the doubt to grow. Meghan spoke privately, before leaving with a former royal wardrobe advisor, who had once managed restricted jewel inventories. The advisor knew the codes, inspections, and transportation rules hidden from public view. What sounded like wounded curiosity had found an informed guide. Soon it would harden into a direct challenge, bringing Catherine and Meghan face to face, with no ceremony, no husbands, and no polite escape. When Catherine entered the small blue drawing room at Windsor, Meghan was already waiting. There were no cameras, no public smiles, and no line of aides prepared to soften their words. Between them sat a velvet presentation case, containing photographs of the pearl tiara, but not the jewel itself. Catherine had arrived heartbroken and searching for an explanation. Meghan had arrived convinced she was correcting an injustice. Within minutes, restraint gave way to confrontation. William had arranged the meeting after Harry demanded that the matter be settled personally rather than through palace officials. The prince waited in one adjoining room, while the duke remained in another, close enough to intervene but unable to control what was said. Both brothers had agreed that no advisors would enter. For once, Catherine and Meghan would have nowhere to hide behind carefully prepared language. The empty case carried its own warning. The tiara remained inside the royal vault, a protected storage system where important crown jewels are secured and released only with formal permission. Neither woman possessed it, neither could remove it. Catherine understood that boundary as protection for the monarchy, while Meghan viewed it as another locked gate designed to keep her outside. Meghan spoke first. She said the pearls had become proof that Catherine's side of the family was considered more important than Harry's. The princess gripped the back of a chair and fought to keep her voice steady. Duty, she answered, could not be turned into a competition between two wives. Years of service could not be erased simply because an object carried emotional meaning. Then Meghan invoked Diana. She argued that both sons deserved to pass their mother's symbolic legacy to their families, and Harry should not be treated as though his connection mattered less. Catherine's composure finally cracked. She told the Duchess that Diana's memory belonged to her sons, but it must never become leverage in a fight over rank. Grief was not permission. Love was not ownership. Catherine placed a copy of the confidential request on the table and pointed to the unpublished inventory code. She asked Meghan exactly who had supplied it. The Duchess paused and looked toward the closed door behind which Harry was waiting. She refused to give a name, but disclosed during that private conversation that someone had shown her part of the restricted jewel record. According to that source, Queen Elizabeth had never signed a binding prohibition preventing her from wearing the tiara. That admission changed the room. Someone had not merely offered advice. Someone had opened protected records and encouraged a direct challenge. Catherine slowly closed the empty case. Then the king must decide, she said. Charles already had the relevant file in his hands. The monarch now faced a brutal choice between family peace and the rules of the crown. And one handwritten page inside that file threatened to settle the dispute forever. Charles sat alone at a polished desk as the sealed file was placed before him. Inside were decades of instructions, private correspondence, and one handwritten note from Queen Elizabeth concerning the pearl tiara's future. The king understood that his decision would be judged as more than an answer to Meghan. It would define whether royal symbols remained governed by duty or could be claimed through personal connection. Then he reached the final page and stopped reading. Charles carried authority over the royal collection as its custodian, meaning he protected its historic treasures on behalf of the monarchy, rather than treating them as his private possessions. He could approve ceremonial access, but that power had limits. Queen Elizabeth's recorded intentions and established constitutional practice, the customs guiding how the sovereign performs official duties, could not be ignored simply to ease a family dispute. The keeper of the royal jewels had already submitted a documented assessment. The official confirmed that the pearl tiara had been classified for the senior working woman expected to become queen. That designation made Catherine its sole authorized wearer under present conditions. Allowing Meghan to borrow it would not be a harmless gesture. It would weaken the future queen's position and suggest that ceremonial rank could be challenged through personal pressure. Charles removed his glasses after reading Meghan's request. He understood Harry's continuing attachment to Diana and knew that his younger son often saw royal objects as fragments of a mother taken too soon. Yet sympathy could not erase responsibility. If the monarch approved the request, Catherine would appear unprotected by the very institution she had served. If he refused, Harry would see another door closing against his family. Camilla entered and found him motionless. She asked what the final page contained, but the king did not answer immediately. He admitted that every decision involving his sons now felt like choosing which part of the family must be hurt. The queen consort reminded him that refusing a claim was not the same as rejecting a person. Still, Charles knew Harry might never accept that difference. Queen Elizabeth's handwritten instruction finally removed all doubt. The note stated that the tiara must accompany the responsibilities of the direct line, the branch of the family moving immediately toward the throne, and must never pass through sentimental or marital claims. Her words protected Catherine, but they also ended Meghan's argument. A security audit delivered the final blow. Investigators recorded that a former wardrobe advisor had copied a restricted catalog page after the St. James's Palace reception. The advisor later communicated with Meghan's representative and supplied the hidden inventory code. Charles signed the refusal. He suspended outside access to the jewel catalog and ordered that Harry be informed personally before any announcement. The signature protected the pearls, but when the decision reached Meghan and the Duke, it destroyed the last hope that this battle could remain behind palace doors. The answer arrived in a plain cream envelope, but its meaning was unmistakable. Meghan would not receive the tiara. The private catalog was being sealed, and future requests for restricted royal jewels would require the king's personal approval. Harry read the decision first. Meghan stood beside him, waiting for reassurance. Instead, he reached the final paragraph, dropped the envelope onto the table, and realized the palace had also uncovered their confidential source. Charles's ruling left no space for negotiation. The pearl tiara would remain assigned to Catherine. Transportation outside Britain was forbidden, and Meghan's application was officially closed. She would receive no ceremonial reconsideration, meaning the request could not be reopened for another royal event. The monarch had not delayed the claim or softened its terms. He had ended it. The former wardrobe advisor faced an equally severe consequence. Palace security removed every remaining archive privilege and ordered the advisor to return all copied inventory material. Archive privileges allow approved individuals to enter or examine protected royal records. By canceling that access, Charles made clear that the leak was not harmless guidance between former colleagues. It was a breach of trust that had exposed the monarchy's private security system. Meghan took the envelope from Harry and read the decision without speaking. Anger rose first, but humiliation quickly replaced it. Catherine's position was described as unique and non-transferable, language that meant her ceremonial responsibility could not be shared or handed to another person. The Duchess had asked for recognition. Instead, she had received a formal reminder that her place outside royal service now carried permanent limits. Harry called William before Meghan could stop him. He accused his brother of turning Diana's memory into institutional property and allowing palace officials to control which son could honor her. The prince listened until the anger broke into silence. Then he answered with 5 cold words. "This was never yours to promise." Harry finally disclosed the truth during the recorded call. He had warned Meghan that the request would probably fail, but he supported it because he believed a public refusal would force Charles to address Diana's legacy. The Duke had knowingly allowed the challenge to move forward. Meghan stared at him as the admission landed, realizing he had used her claim to provoke a larger confrontation with his father and brother. Catherine overheard William's final words from the adjoining room. She understood that Harry had seen the damage coming and continued anyway. The princess stepped into the corridor, pressed one hand against the wall, and quietly began to cry. Minutes later, Meghan sent Catherine a direct message. She asked for one final private conversation, without husbands, advisors, records, or royal rules between them. The official battle was over. Now only the two women remained, and their next meeting would turn heartbreak into a choice no palace could make for them. The second meeting looked nothing like the first. There was no velvet case, no formal request, and no one waiting behind an adjoining door. Catherine and Meghan sat opposite each other in a quiet garden room as afternoon rain struck the windows. For the first time, neither woman argued about ownership. Meghan admitted what the tiara had come to represent in her mind, while Catherine revealed why the claim had wounded her far beyond protocol. That honesty changed the conflict. Catherine had agreed to meet at a private royal residence, a home controlled by the crown but kept away from public ceremonies and official crowds. She set one firm condition: no staff member would enter, record, or prepare an account of their exchange. Meghan accepted. They arrived separately and closed the door themselves, leaving every advisor and family argument outside. Meghan spoke without the defiance that had shaped their first meeting. She explained that the tiara had become a symbol of everything she believed her children lost after leaving royal life: public recognition, a sense of belonging, and a visible connection to Diana's heritage. The Duchess knew pearls could not repair those losses, yet she had convinced herself that wearing them would prove her family had not been erased. Catherine listened before admitting something Meghan had never considered. The princess had never experienced the jewel as a prize. She remembered trembling before its first public use, because every pearl represented expectations she feared she might fail to meet. Protocol, the rules controlling royal conduct and official appearances, had not made her feel powerful. It had made her feel watched, measured, and responsible for preserving a promise made by the late Queen. Meghan's anger faded when Catherine described what the claim had done to her. Years of loyalty, illness, pressure, and disciplined silence suddenly seemed reduced to possession of one beautiful object. The future queen had not been defending jewelry. She had been defending the meaning of everything she had endured to serve. Then Meghan made the admission that changed everything. During their unrecorded private conversation, she confessed that the former wardrobe advisor had approached her first. The advisor described the tiara as unassigned property and urged her to challenge the palace before Catherine's future position became permanent. Meghan finally recognized that the guidance had manipulated her deepest fear, that her children no longer mattered. Meghan wrote a withdrawal statement by hand and surrendered every remaining claim. Catherine did not offer her the tiara, but she proposed supporting a private exhibition honoring Diana's charitable legacy and both sons' connection to that work. Catherine and Meghan left without embracing. Forgiveness had not erased the damage. But the Duchess authorized the signed statement's release, ensuring the public would learn that the struggle was over, and that its final meaning would be accountability, firm boundaries, and reluctant recognition, rather than seizure or revenge. By sunrise, the private dispute had become a global spectacle. Broadcasters debated inheritance, newspapers revisited Diana's jewels, and crowds gathered outside palace gates, expecting another royal rupture. Yet one image changed the mood. Catherine appeared at Buckingham Palace, wearing the pearl tiara, not with triumph, but with visible solemnity. Hours later, Meghan's signed withdrawal was released. Together, those two moments turned a bitter contest into a public statement about duty, limits, and dignity. Buckingham Palace issued a concise statement before the appearance. The palace serves as the monarch's official London headquarters and speaks publicly for the crown during major royal matters. Its announcement confirmed that the late Queen's written instructions assigned the tiara to Catherine, and that Meghan had voluntarily withdrawn every claim. The wording was careful, no accusation appeared, and neither woman was publicly humiliated. Charles had personally approved that restraint. The king wanted the statement to emphasize family respect, while making one boundary impossible to misunderstand. Restricted royal objects are historic items, released only for approved duties, not possessions that can be claimed through marriage or private relationships. He protected Catherine's position without turning Meghan's defeat into a punishment. For the monarch, that distinction mattered. Harry watched the coverage in silence, as Meghan's handwritten statement appeared across every major broadcast. The Duke felt relieved that attacks against his wife were beginning to ease, but the palace announcement also confirmed their distance from royal life. Meghan understood his anger, yet reminded him that she had chosen to withdraw. She would not allow Diana's memory to become fuel for another fight between her sons. William stood beside Catherine moments before she appeared. The prince asked whether she was ready. She touched the pearls, took a slow breath, and answered, "Now I understand what they require of me." He knew she was not speaking about jewelry. Catherine meant the discipline of carrying pain without using power to humiliate the person who caused it. Then one front page captured the entire storm. The London Chronicle published a photograph of Catherine beneath Buckingham Palace's central balcony, with the headline, "The pearls remain with the future queen." The image did not show celebration. It showed responsibility. Commentators who had spent hours discussing rivalry began talking instead about restraint, legacy, and the cost of public duty. Outside the palace, the crowd briefly fell quiet as Catherine's car passed. One woman raised a handwritten sign reading, "Duty is not ownership." The message transformed the public mood because it separated service from possession and honor from victory. Yet Catherine had already made one final decision about the tiara. The world had delivered its judgment, but her next act would determine whether the pearls remained a symbol of bitterness or became something more meaningful after the noise finally faded. Catherine could have ended the story by locking the tiara deeper inside the royal vault. Instead, she chose to remove it from personal conflict altogether. Standing before Charles, William, and the keeper of the royal jewels, she proposed that the pearls be displayed before every future ceremonial use, alongside a written history of the women who carried royal duty before her. The decision protected her place without humiliating Meghan, and revealed what Catherine believed queenship should truly mean. Catherine formally accepted Queen Elizabeth's designation, confirming that she would remain the tiara's sole authorized wearer, while serving as Princess of Wales, and, eventually, as Queen. The keeper recorded that acceptance in the jewel register, the official record identifying who may use protected royal pieces. Yet she refused to treat the decision as a personal victory. The pearls would remain a responsibility, never a trophy. Catherine also proposed a controlled public exhibition, explaining the tiara's ceremonial history. Such an exhibition would allow selected royal treasures to be displayed under strict security, while keeping ownership with the crown. The written account would honor the late Queen's judgment, Diana's humanitarian influence, and the women who carried duty through moments of national uncertainty. The jewel would belong to history, not family rivalry. Charles read the proposal and slowly set it down. The king told Catherine that restraint after humiliation required greater strength than victory. William remained beside his wife, as those words finally broke through months of pressure. The princess smiled, not because she had defeated Meghan, but because the monarch understood why she had refused to answer pain with revenge. Meghan received a private copy of the exhibition plan. The exclusion still hurt, and she could not pretend otherwise. Yet the Duchess recognized that Catherine had neither shamed her nor erase Diana from the story. Her handwritten withdrawal entered the official record, permanently closing the claim. A security report confirmed that every copied catalog page had been recovered, and the former advisor's access had been revoked for life. Harry accepted the outcome during a recorded conversation with William. The Duke admitted that emotional connection could not create ownership, even when grief made that boundary painful. In return, the Prince agreed that Diana's humanitarian legacy would receive fair space within the exhibition. Both brothers protected their mother's memory without reopening the argument over her jewels. Catherine's heartbreak ended without revenge. The tiara was not proof of superiority, and it could never replace the belonging Meghan had sought. It was a burden of service accepted with dignity, and so the forbidden pearls remained with Catherine because she understood their responsibility. The claim was withdrawn, the breach was closed, and the monarchy's verdict was final. Royal legacy is protected through service, never seized through entitlement. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.